to the ShowRatings.tv Pilot Roundtable, a Southgate Media Group podcast. I'm Olivia Richards.
And I'm Kyle Tremblay.
And we're from ShowRatings.tv, where you can rate and review all your favorite TV shows, including the new series we're talking about today,
Cristela!
Okay, I'm going to start off by saying that I loved this pilot in a way that I did not think I was going to.
Really? Oh, now tell me more. I want to hear what you loved about it.
Alright, first and foremost, I really enjoyed the fact that this show actually breaks down stereotypes as part of the joke. Like, they make fun of ignorance instead of perpetuating it as the joke. So if you've been listening to the other podcasts we've been doing, you understand, like, just the hell we've been in.
Oh, it's been rough.
Horrible pilot.
It has been rough.
It's been really bad. So it was actually really refreshing to see something, a show that's kind of a little bit more progressive in terms of its content.
Yeah, it reminded me a little bit of Blackish, another show that we really liked, and another show that's on ABC. Look at ABC go. That where the perspective, where it's dealing with stereotypes, and there are characters who are making jokes about stereotypes, but the perspective of the show is from someone who is in a position to thwart those stereotypes, which is a very different perspective than many of the comedies we've seen so far. I'm looking at you, Manhattan Love Story.
Pointing fingers.
Pointing fingers. Another ABC show, by the way, so I removed my props from ABC. but yeah, it was you know, I mean, there's the boss character. Well, I didn't want to talk about the boss because that's sort of a standard sitcom character. But the Cristela's sister's husband, who's around the house and makes a lot of like really upsetting remarks and generally like insensitive comments about women. I feel like that character is the main character on Manhattan Love Story. Right?
Oh God, it was horrible. But to see, like, that's why the show was so, or Cristela, not Manhattan Love Story, but like,
thank goodness.
The show was so refreshing because as he's just making these misogynistic, sexist remarks, like, she's just shooting him down at every given opportunity. Like, she's taking none of it, and like, she makes it very clear her feelings and position on, you know, being talked to and treated a certain way.
Yeah. Are you familiar at all with her comedy?
I'm not. I've never seen her perform before.
Me neither.
Just watching the show, it kind of makes me want to look into her background in stand-up.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Gabriel Iglesias' comedy, who shows up as the neighbor? Me too. I enjoyed that. It's always nice to see someone you recognize, and you know, he's always fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my take on this, I was not expecting to like this at all. And actually, I want to ask you before I get to my take, if you could step back for a second and tell me, is any of your enjoyment of this show because you're comparing it relative to the other garbage we've watched this season, and that just seeing a show that is not offensively bad is like a home run now, or is this like is this genuine like enjoyment, like in a vacuum? Would you enjoy this like as much?
Oh, that's kind of hard to say. I mean, definitely the fact that my standards for what's currently on like TV in terms of sitcoms right now has dropped to just dismal levels. That certainly makes this pilot look like the next just amazing thing to watch. But no, I think if it stands alone, and if I had just seen it without seeing any of the other shows, I still think it would have kind of hooked me in, because I really connected to Cristela as the lead for this show, and she's really driving it.
Yes, I feel the exact same way. I'm going to use a term that I haven't used on this podcast before. Cristela Alonso on this show is a revelation. She is spectacular at being on a sitcom, which is, for a comedian, certainly not a sure thing. CC John Mulaney. But she is so good at sitcom acting, and I couldn't even believe it. And unlike Mulaney, it makes total sense that this is a multicam. This feels like a show that was built to be a multicam and functions well as a multicam, and I couldn't imagine it as a single cam. It makes sense for this show to have an audience, because Cristela has such good timing on those one-liners, and she's selling them in such a sort of over-the-top way, but like a charming over-the-top way, the way that every multicam actor does, every successful multicam actor does. it wouldn't make sense for this to be a single cam. It would be ridiculous. And so, like, this is a show that I think takes real advantage of the multicam format because Cristela herself is so charming as a comedian and so over the top that I think it really worked. I think her performance really worked in this pilot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another really strong thing this show was able to accomplish was balancing like these poignant kind of more emotional moments with the comedy. And I wanted to pick out the specific instance of Cristela's conversation with her mom at the end, when her mom was kind of mentioning how she had a fear that if Cristela makes it as a successful lawyer, that she would eventually be embarrassed by her mother. And the fact that there was that pause, and then Cristela's just like, I'm already embarrassed by it.
Yeah.
So that was such a perfect way to take that kind of, that poignant kind of heavy moment and bring it back to that light sitcom style.
Yes. And what's so funny is I don't mean to bring up Manhattan Love Story a lot, but it has scarred me as I'm realizing. It has completely scarred me, and I compare every sitcom to it now. But every sitcom this season has had that moment, right? Like the end of the episode, everyone has a big awe, moment where they all have a big group hug or whatever, or something poignant is said and all that. Like that's standard fare. But you're absolutely right to pick out that joke because on Manhattan Love Story, a pilot that was offensive and bad and offensively bad. There is that moment at the end, but first of all, they let it linger way longer without a joke, and then the joke that is made is a gay joke. And it's like, oh, like, geez, really? Like, it's like it's just one more slap in the face to everyone who watched that show. And this was, I mean, I feel like you pick out that moment perfectly because it's sort of Cristela in a nutshell, which is that the jokes feel tonally right. Like there's a tone to this show, and it's a tone of like, almost like ball busting love. Like I thought, I'll get into what I thought of the show now, because I thought the first 10 minutes or 8 to 10 minutes where they were all just sitting around the living room, sort of busting each other's balls, was so good I didn't even know what to do with myself. Like I thought that the sort of rapid fire way they were talking and the way Cristela sort of quarterbacked that whole scene, to use a Sports Center metaphor that she would like to use, she Tony Romo'd that whole scene. But like just the way that scene happened, I was like, whoa, what? Like I was like looking around my apartment, like, is this happening? Like this is a pilot. Yeah, this is good. This is so good. I don't even know what to do with myself. And then I feel like it kind of fell apart. I feel like this pilot, once it got into sort of the business of being a sitcom and not just a cool show where a lot of charming people sit around and sort of make fun of each other, I thought it kind of fell apart a bit, even though Cristela was always good the whole time.
I kind of feel the same way. I brought this up in like some other podcast I was doing with Rob and Martha Southgate for Under the Dome, weirdly enough.
Oh, like, yeah. More ABC.
You have those episodes of the shows where like you literally feel like you've only been watching it 5 minutes and you want to keep watching and you just feel like it ended really quickly.
Yeah.
This was the opposite of that, unfortunately. Like you said before, like that 8 to 10 minutes in the beginning was amazing, and I was like really engaged in it. But I feel like as the show kind of started hitting into like, the 15-minute mark and the 20-minute mark, it started to drag, and I started to look down at the time, like minute by minute.
Yeah.
All right, if we could just like wrap this up.
Yeah, I mean, there was like, I did laugh a little bit at like the boss's just obviously racist interactions with her and the way that she sort of fought back on that. But just that whole workplace setup I don't think worked. Having the dumb blonde and the clear like love interest guy that's being set up, and it just those scenes sort of dragged, I thought, and just the sort of brass tacks of having to, establish that, they wanted to move out and the daughter skinned her knee and like all that sort of traditional sitcom stuff, I thought really bogged down and disrupted the thing that I think the show has going for it, which is just everyone in a room talking to each other. Like I really like the family dynamic on this show, and especially when the neighbor comes over and, he's got a dynamic as well, and I just think that this is a show that's going to really struggle when it needs to get down to business of being a sitcom. And hopefully, in its run, it's going to figure out a way to minimize that aspect and kind of have the episodes be about nothing and just sort of let, sort of just ride the charms of the lead, because she is more than capable of carrying a sitcom.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think the one thing they did really well when it did get down to the business aspect of it is having her actually be career oriented without it being focused on like, okay, well you have a career, but what about your love life? Like,
yes.
We'll go back to Manhattan Love Story, but like you have like Dana within that, like she landed her dream job, and like her best friend's reaction like immediately was to say, well, okay, well I'm hooking you up with a guy, and I'm like, when? What?
Yeah.
Like, that's not a reaction to when your best friend tells you that they just got an amazing New York job, like, fresh out of college. Like, that...
Yeah. It's great to watch a sitcom that isn't about, like, well-to-do white people. Like, young adults, right? Like, it's kind of nice. Just to see, like, a more... I don't want to say like working class, but I guess a more working class show where like everyone is sort of, I mean that's a running joke amongst the family in this episode, and the fact that she didn't get a job as a hotshot lawyer, and she's not in over her head. She got a job as an intern who doesn't get paid, and like I kind of like seeing a sitcom about someone at that level of their career, where it's not about these people who are living like already perfect life and about their problems. And it just seemed it was very charming for me.
Yeah, definitely. And I think having her be in that transition period is also going to kind of like broaden the demographic of people who are watching, because it's like you have people in my position where I'm kind of transitioning out of college and into the working world. So it's sort of the same thing. But then you also have people within the working world who are looking to, possibly move up in their career or just starting out. And it kind of caters to both mentalities of like, okay, well, I have to work, but I'm getting paid nothing, or like, I want to be really successful and I'm looking for the tools to do that. And you can really relate to Cristela's character in both of those regards.
Yes, it is a show, and this is something that I say about Parks and Recreation that I feel like doesn't get enough credit, which is that it's a show about aspiration. And I think that that's a sort of underrated, underlying thing with sitcoms, is that whether the show is about aspiration or about characters who don't like the world they're in. Almost the opposite. And like, again, we're just gonna make it a cool 10 for 10 with Manhattan Love Story references. But that's a show about characters who are on the surface well-to-do, but who are deeply unhappy with their circumstances and need someone to, like, complete them, which I think is a much more difficult long-term sell for a sitcom than one where characters are trying to better themselves. Aspirational shows. They want to become more successful, as opposed to they already have all the success and they're either trying to maintain it or they're trying to find a way to be happy within their success. And I think that that's a really subtle thing with Cristela, but it's very important, and it's part of what makes the show watchable, and it makes you want to root for her.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just, exactly what you were saying. Just this idea that like, because I feel like just keeping the Manhattan Love Story thing going, that mentality of like, it's never going to be enough. So you have the perfect job, but what about your love life? Like, yes, you have this perfect guy, but your life's a mess. Like, this idea that like it is possible to be working towards something better, but you also have like that support system, and just it's not like, oh my god, I have to have everything.
Yes.
It's impossible. Like,
right.
There's no such thing as, the I have everything woman.
Yeah, well, like you said, with Manhattan Love Story, it's like, you got the perfect job, let's find you a man. Like, it's like, that's not what this is. This is like someone who's trying to make it. And again, that's one of the things that upon, in retrospect, that I found initially so charming about Parks and Recreation, which is my all-time favorite show, which is that it's about, like someone who's just trying to make it work and trying to improve. And that's, I think, something that we can all relate to.
Yeah, absolutely. So once again, I think this goes without saying, but what is your overall verdict for the show?
Despite my reservations, and I don't want to downplay that, I think that Cristela's performance on this show is much better than the show itself. Having said that, it is a comedy pilot, and most comedy pilots are a disaster. And I think it's very unfair to judge a pilot by the first episode unless that pilot is Mulaney, in which case it should just be taken off the air. Just stopped. But I think when you have a sitcom with a lead this good, I think that ABC has uncovered someone who might be like a real star here. And for that alone, I'm giving it a thumbs up because I think that they should really stick with her and see where she can go with this.
Oh yeah, I completely agree, and I definitely am giving the show a thumbs up because I want to see it succeed and do well. All right, so that concludes this episode of the ShowRatings.tv Pilot Roundtable. We invite you to check out this and other Southgate Media Group podcasts at southgatemediagroup.com and to read about, rate, and discuss all your favorite shows at ShowRatings.tv. You can follow me on Twitter at RichardsOlivia, Kyle at KyleLovesTV, and ShowRatings at ShowRatings.tv. Until next time, thanks for listening.
If you would like to donate to help pay for this and other Southgate Media Group podcasts, simply go to our website, southgatemediagroup.com, and click on the donate button. It can be as little as $1 or, well, as much as you want. Help keep this fun going by supporting this and our other shows. Thanks again for listening, everyone. You're the best fans in the world.